Hello and welcome to the Albion Obsessed podcast. We are back after the international break, and what a match we have to dissect for you today. But before we get into that, let's see who we've got on this live stream today. We welcome Joseph. Joseph, my friend, how are you? And how was your trip to Manchester?
Hello, Thomas. I am doing very, 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 very good. Manchester was the very best northern city I've ever visited, and it was the very best time, and the very best memories have been made. So I'm very happy. I keep saying very. Here we are. Yeah.
Very.
I'm very offended that you thought going to Manchester was better than coming up to the Black Country to see
It's so-
me.
I mean, it's only because we won. So
Human.
yeah. Sorry, Tom.
It's fine. It's fine. I'll get over it.
You've heard
Daniel,
him,
it's
Joe.
nice
You've
to
heard
meet
him.
you finally after all this time. How are you doing, my friend? Welcome to the show.
I'm so glad to be here again. Thank you so much for having me on again. Tom, yeah, brilliant to meet you. First time ever in person. No, well, have we ever met in person? I don't know.
Rumor has it.
Yeah.
Before we
I'm
go
doing-
to Kurtis,
Joe, yeah.
I won 6 chicken nuggets at McDonald's yesterday. That was when my life peaked. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, that was
That's
when my
fine.
life peaked. Sorry. Anyway, go on, Dan. Carry on.
No, it's absolutely fine. We know that that's more important than the rest of what we're going to talk about. You know, nothing can beat that. I won a McFlurry, I think, or maybe a fruit bag. So it doesn't compete with the chicken nuggets, but it's still a good result. Not as good, however, as the result at Manchester. So I'm very much looking forward to speaking about that.
I'm vegan. I don't condone any of this.
He's now mentioned it.
Kurtis, welcome back to the show, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm grand. Yeah, really happy to be on one of these with you lovely individuals. Ecstatic to talk about a win again at Old Trafford. So let's do this. Let's get down and dirty.
Yes, let's do this. And don't forget, guys, if you are watching with us live, please drop your thoughts in the comments section down below. If there's anything you want us to chat about today, please do join in the conversation. Yes, Aaron, I can confirm that I am that V word. Got a joke for you. How do you know a vegan's a vegan? Don't worry, we'll tell you.
Now, talking of jokes, Dan's got a joke to tell us.
Do we have time?
I don't think anyone has
joke.
We might need
yeah.
a separate pod for that.
in the chat, if you want to hear Dan's joke, let us know. And if there's enough requests for it, he will tell the joke.
It's a good 6 minutes long. It's very good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So
I'm amazed to enjoy it.
We've got our first comments, and it was a poor result. Yeah, we should have won by 6.
I think we could have done. Honestly.
Roberto Zerbi out. Get gone.
Yeah, Zerbi out. We've dropped down to 5th today with Arsenal winning. So, God, I mean, he's been in the post a year, and this is what we're doing. We're just messing around in 5th. Not good enough. But in all seriousness, we've got a lot to dissect today. I mean, the starting 11 in the game yesterday alone is worthy of a good long chat, because some huge talking points as we enter a period where Brighton have got 7 games across 3 competitions in 23 days. So there's a lot of football to be played. And there were 6 changes to the starting 11 that faced Newcastle before the international break. So in came Jason Steele, Tariq Lamptey, Mo Dahoud, Lallana, Welbeck and Adingra. Joe, really quickly, first starts for Lallana since January and Lamptey since March after respective hamstring and knee injuries. Good to see them back in the starting 11 in the Premier League.
Very good to see Lamptey back. I think it's not lost on anyone how important it is for us to have cover at fullback on both sides. And Tariq Lamptey can provide that with as much pedigree as a new signing would have. 100%. He already knows the team. He's already settled. He knows how to play the Zerbi ball. We haven't seen much of him, granted, but whenever he has played, he's looked really effective. And it was good to see him do the same yesterday. Lallana, it was fantastic to see him. You know, you're always going to get professionalism from Adam Lallana. And just all round good to see some faces that we haven't seen for a while come in and put in a really professional performance.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Joe, about it being a professional performance. I mean, Dan, a lot of people before a ball had even been kicked were feeling. I said it to someone on Twitter. I think concerned is the wrong word. For me, it wasn't about the individuals coming in. It was just about the sheer amount of different individuals. 6 changes, although unsurprising considering the amount of football. But, we're talking about no Verbruggen, no Purvis Estepinian, no Billy Gilmore, no Solly March, guys that have really sort of done very well. No Ferguson after a hat-trick in the last time out, and no João Pedro as well, who's looked very good in his substitute appearances. Were you, for want of a better word, a little concerned at just how many changes we had made, bearing in mind the big names we were missing?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't, I'd say, shocked or surprised or anything. I was expecting some changes, but as you say, it was surprising to see quite so many for a big game, right, against fellow top 6 contenders, Manchester United, which is absolutely ridiculous to say. But I was surprised. I thought it would be really good to see Lamptey coming in. I wasn't sure if he'd be quite ready to play the full 90. Same with Lallana, same potentially with Welbeck. But I could see that we had some good reinforcements on the bench. So I thought maybe Zerbi was focusing on the European game midweek, making sure everyone was fresh and fit for that, and maybe just trying to get people up to speed. I was a little bit worried, but again, I don't know exactly how to describe it, because I was concerned to see so many changes, but at the same time, I have complete and total faith in what Zerbi does. So I knew it wasn't going to be an absolute car crash. It was just, I can tell you, I was relieved not to see Milner starting at left back or right back, at least.
I think what it was, Dan, was when the team lineup came out, before it came out, I was saying, I just hope it's not Welbeck and Lallana together up front. And that proved me wrong within, 30 minutes. But my concern about that was the lack of pace. And I know fans will say pace isn't everything. And that's absolutely true, because you saw the intelligence of both Lallana and Welbeck for that first goal. But it was just concerning that we wouldn't maybe have that creativity or that spark from both of them. But yeah, as I say, happy to be proved wrong.
Absolutely. And something which I forgot to mention as well was I'm absolutely buzzing to see Adingra starting. He's looked so good in all of his little cameos, just electric constantly. And I was so pleased to see him start. I mean, we may touch more on his performance a little bit later, but yeah, really happy to see him get his first start.
Yeah, we certainly will, because I thought with Simon Adingra as well, it wasn't just his forward play yesterday that was really good to see. His defensive attributes were on show as well. And as you say, Dan, we'll discuss his name a little bit later. I mean, one of the big ones, Kurtis, for many was no Purvis, and not just in the starting 11, no Purvis in the match day squad. A lot of people were surprised that we didn't add left back depth in the summer transfer window. Purvis, of course, played about 180 minutes in South America in World Cup qualifiers against Argentina and Uruguay, respectively. That was perhaps the most concerning, again, for want of a better word for me, not seeing Purvis on the team sheet. How did you react to such an important player missing?
Well, it was him and Solly for me. I was about like, oh, what's going on there? But ultimately, it makes sense to rest Purvis for the European game. Obviously, when the lineup came out, I was like, oh, okay, this is different. But I feel like we've played just as good in the past with lesser teams, so I wasn't really that concerned. And again, I think I've said this before, I'm never really concerned when we go to Old Trafford anymore. I was hoping Ferguson might start, but seeing Zerbi choose Welbeck as his weapon of choice, I was pretty happy about that. And it's good to see him get that goal. So I'm just happy with the subtle lineup changes and seeing people like Lamptey in there. Just happy with that.
And it's really good that, you've praised Welbeck like you should there, because, he played really well yesterday. And I'm sure there were many people who raised eyebrows when they saw that. But Joe, we've seen a lot of international football, Dunkey, Gilmore, Matoma, Pascal Gross. A lot of players have had a lot of minutes. And then, unfortunately, Solly March also didn't make the matchday squad. Zerbi said pre-match that that Solly had felt a small injury problem and he didn't want to take any risks. Overall, smart move.
Yeah, definitely a smart move, and Zerbi is the perfect guy to know what his players need and when his players need a rest. And as Kurtis said, whatever team you put out at Old Trafford, are you concerned? Probably not. And that is just mind-blowing to say this day and age, that we can watch our football club with that much confidence, go into these mad historic stadiums against these mad historic teams and put out whatever squad we like and play them off the park. And as Dan said, a very capable replacement in Simon Adingra to come in and do a really solid job. I'm always gutted to not see Solly March in the side. I'm one of his biggest fans, and it's concerning. I hope that it's not an ongoing injury problem. However, if it is, we have more than capable replacements if need be.
We certainly do. And Dan, we saw two of those very capable replacements across the pitch on the bench yesterday. Ansu Fati making the bench, as did Baliba, obviously a central defensive midfield, but Ansu Fati getting to the bench for the first time. We will, of course, unpick his performance towards the end of the game a bit later. But Dan, how exciting was it to see the Barcelona prodigy on the bench?
Just unbelievable. Absolutely incredible, mind-blowing. I don't have the words to describe how just impressive it is that we have Barcelona's number 10 on loan, albeit, but he's come to Brighton because he wants to play under Zerbi. It's just fascinating. And I remember quite a few years ago we were watching. I think it was the Stoke goal, the Izquierdo Stoke goal. The commentary line was, "Am I watching Brighton or Barcelona?" And then to actually finally have a Barcelona player playing for us now, it is like, it's just ridiculous. I've sort of lost track of what the question was, but it's incredible.
You answered it perfectly, Daniel. So thank you. So, I mean, we could sit here and talk about the ins and outs of the starting 11 all night, but of course, hindsight is a wonderful thing. Again, as someone said on Twitter, if it had gone the other way, a lot of people would have probably pointed to that rotation as the reason we could have not performed as well as we did. But we did have to weather a bit of a storm, Kurtis. The first 20 minutes or so, Manchester United came at us hard and fast. How uncomfortable were those opening 20 minutes or so for you?
A very difficult listen. It's more frustrating when you can't actually watch it. Thanks, 3 p.m. blackout. I really appreciate that. When you can't actually watch it. But I knew that if we weathered the storm, we could definitely get something out of it. I just knew that we had to be patient, and that's probably what Zerbi was saying. Just calm it down, be patient. They're probably going to come at you hard. I was sat there thinking to myself, like, right here, right now, I'm not concerned. So, yeah, I wasn't worried.
Well, at least that was one of us who wasn't worried, because I was a little panicked. Joe, Zerbi said that he wasn't expecting United to play the way they did. And in the opening 20 minutes or so, well, all game really, it was Marcus Rashford who was causing Brighton all sorts of problems. One of the early chances, Rashford weaving into the area, but Steele made a good save with his right foot. A big job for Joel Veltman and Oppenheck to contain such a brilliant footballer that is Marcus Rashford, but they handled him reasonably well.
Yeah, big players for big occasions. I think that's what they're going to be this season for us, both of those guys. Veltman always continues to impress me. The amount of money that we signed him for is criminal. I don't know how we've got a player of that caliber for such little money, and what he's given us and what he continues to give is fantastic, and I honestly think he should be our starting right back every single time, where fitness allows, obviously. And Van Heck, like, we'll talk more about his performance later, but it was almost perfect. I don't think you can call it perfect if you can see the goal, but it was a wonder goal. However, it was absolutely stunning. And Adam Webster does not have a way back into this side when Jean-Paul Van Heck is playing that well. So yeah, for me, they done a great job against a really dangerous player. And I said to Dan during the game, Rashford is the only person that's going to create something, and he did. He did continue to create after that as well. But we nullified him, and we nullified him when it mattered the most.
I'm actually going to pick on that point you said. Let's talk about him now, because Callum's just put in the chat there as well. Van Hecker looks like he's getting better every game. And you've just said something there, Joe, that I certainly agree with, Dan, that Adam Webster, how do you get past Jean-Paul Van Hecker when he's playing this well? Surely he has got to be the starting centre-back next to Lewis Dunk for the foreseeable future. He's playing that well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's as Callum says, as Joe says, as I think kind of general consensus is that he is just improving every single game. It's almost unnatural how he's just getting better and better and better at such a rate. You know, this time last season, I don't think we'd even seen him in the first team. It was only really, I mean, when did he start playing first? When did he start actually coming into the first team? It was
mostly
not
cup
long
games,
ago,
I
was
think.
it? Yeah.
No.
And
He had a
even then,
couple
I
of
don't
cup
remember being.
games, and then he didn't break into the Premier League starting 11 for a while towards the tail end of the season. I think he had a bit of a sort of game, and then he started against Man City, and everyone was like,
there were also rumors of him leaving a little while ago as well, like him wanting to leave.
Of course, yeah, because it was a toss up. I think we were looking at him and keeping him and Ostergaard on. And at the time, my preference was to keep Ostergaard. Obviously, he went on. But we've absolutely made the right call in keeping Van Hecker in, because he's just mind blowing. You know, he's a couple of shaky games, just getting up to speed with the Premier League. But then Man City, the task of looking after Haaland, and he just did it with aplomb. You know, he wasn't even breaking a sweat by the looks of it. And yesterday he was almost flawless. You know, practically perfect. If we had kept a clean sheet, as Joe says, it would have been the perfect performance.
It would have been, but Kurtis, I think that what we've seen, I mean, let's take it back to the West Ham game. I don't think the West Ham game it's not the precedent for our back four, but I think it's fair to say that our back four has looked a lot more secure with the input of Joao Veltman and Jean-Paul Van Hecker. Just how important have those two been for you, Kurtis, in bringing balance to that back four?
I mean, do I need to say much about Veltman? We all know how fantastic he is and what an absolute coup he was for us on such a. We got him for like 900k, right? Something like that, something ridiculous. And Van Hecker, but just hiding in the wings, just waiting for his moment. And I'm so glad that he got his chance, because I've been a big fan of his for a while, and I wanted him to do well. And I felt like it was a shame. But I have to agree. I don't know where Webster fits in at the moment. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think Webster could do with maybe a little bit of time out, because he wasn't playing so well. But yeah, I mean, at the moment, I'm pretty happy with what we've got going on in the back there. But I do look forward to seeing like Igor getting his go, probably in maybe in Europe or one of the cup games. I'm not sure. But it's exciting. Lots of really exciting prospects waiting in the wings.
Yeah, Igor's going to be quite an exciting one. I was a little surprised he didn't play at left back yesterday, just given the Zerbi comments pre-match about saying he could play at left back. So I was like, oh yeah, Igor's going to start. But obviously, we'll talk about how fantastic that star man down the left was yesterday in just a bit.
Sorry, Tom, talking about the star man running down the left, me and Dan very quickly on the spot thought of another tune for him. There's a star man running down the left. His name is Tarek Lamptey, and he's running out of breath. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be better if it was and you're running out of breath because you're running after him, and he said,
It would make sense.
Yeah, that works actually. That works.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for. Let us know in your thoughts down below who you think Lewis Dunk's starting centre-back partner should be moving forward. Just be interesting to see what people think. So let's talk about the first goal then, shall we? Because you could argue that you should argue that after Manchester United's initial 20 minutes of domination, Brighton started keeping the ball, and they started keeping it very, very well. And it wasn't long before Manchester United were chasing shadows. And it was a really nice worked goal that got us on the score sheet first. A really nice team move that with Welbeck at the heart of it. He gives the ball to Adingra. Adingra puts in a delightful cross that Adam Lallana, leapfrogs, jumps over the ball, and Welbeck is there to finish completely unmarked. Danny Welbeck was as he went into the box, Joe. A calamitous moment of defending from Manchester United, but a phenomenal team goal. Another phenomenal team goal from Brighton and Hove Albion.
Yeah, I mean, Zerbi ball's all about that. The patience, isn't it? Keeping hold of that ball, waiting for that opportunity to pounce, and seeing the movement ahead of you, and picking the pass. And United were scrambling to get back, and their midfielders were sort of within seconds looking like, how did they do that? And before they knew it, the ball was in the back of the net. And I watched a funny clip from Mark Goldbridge after the game, and he was saying it happens every time. We're not picking up runners from midfield. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. Whose fault is it? And he couldn't actually place fault on anyone. It's just the whole team just stopped and watched us play football. I don't blame them, because it's beautiful football. They can watch us all the time they like. And Danny Welbeck's in the box to do what Danny Welbeck does best. And there are a few Danny Welbeck doubters still to this day. He still pops up and scores very important goals for us. I know he misses sitters, but he still creates the chances. And I always say, when he stops creating the chances, that's when you can cite him. That's when you can push him out of the team. However, he's there to finish a fantastic team move. And what an assist from Adingra as well.
Yeah, it was lovely. And it was a beautiful cross. But Dan, we've got to talk about Adam Lallana's awareness there to almost like just dummy. He's pulling the defender away. The defender is, he sold it to the defender, which means that Welbeck is completely unchallenged in the box. What did you make of the contributions from Simon Adingra and Adam Lallana to help Welbeck get that first goal?
Yeah, again, it's been said already, and it's been said already, an incredible team goal. The pace and the drive from Adingra to get down, the intelligence from Lallana to, as you say, leapfrog over it. If Lallana's watching this, Lallana, I have to praise you for having the awareness to do that. I don't know if he knew that Welbeck was behind him. He must have known that someone was there behind him, because that's how Zerbi plays. He makes sure that there's always someone there, or should be someone there to take the goal. But yeah, it was made by Lallana, I think, almost. I don't know if Lallana would have scored it. Welbeck certainly did. It was brilliant. A really nicely taken goal, completely unmarked.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, we're going to say that a lot we're going to say it for all of our goals, because all of our goals were pretty much exactly the same. A runner unmarked from the midfield coming in to score. And Sandra just put this in the comments. Talking to a United fan in the week, I said I fancied our chances and would probably score 3. Then I hastily added I could be eating humble pie on Monday. You're certainly not, Sandra. And she's also just added, I can see us beating City this season. Sandra, I'm right there with you.
Easy.
Kurtis, I'm going to come to you on this bit. And you've already sort of touched on this already. And I had this conversation about this sort of point after the game with the United fan myself. I think every time we've played United over the last couple of seasons, I've said it, and I see it every time I see them take the pitch. They're not a very good team. They're not willing to track back. They're not willing to work as a cohesive unit. And every time we've played them, Brighton have just been that cohesive team unit. I mean, let's talk about the Joel Veltman blocking Rashford chance where it hit the crossbar. Rashford bearing down into the box, Joel Veltman throwing himself in front of the ball. I just can't see a Man United player doing that, laying their body down in front of that to stop a goal. What do you make of it, Kurtis? Brighton as a better cohesive team.
Well, I've always felt that Man United have a lot of personalities in their team, and it's never. Well, I'd say the past sort of 5 or 6 years, it hasn't felt like a gelled squad. Like when like Ronaldo was there, it just felt like there was. It felt like sort of like a load of celebrities just playing a football game, and yeah, I mean, without boosting our own ego, like there's a lot of togetherness. There's so much wanting to play for each other, and it's just noticeable with just the way that things are done, and you can hear them like shouting to each other. You'll see Lallana like asking for stuff, and there's like leaders on that pitch and in our squad, and I don't necessarily get that when I watch Man United. And this is also what I was saying, like I don't get that Man United fear anymore, like I would have done like 7 years ago or whatever. I'm like, oh, Man United, oh, the big scary Man United. I actually quite look forward to the game, so I always think now, like, yeah, we'll probably get something out of that, or at least I hope so. But talking about Veltman, like, it's more of the same. He goes home, empties his pocket, and there's a football player in it. So it's just what he does. It's just what the man does, and long may it continue.
I think the same goes to say for most of the big six, Kurtis, when we come up against them. Probably only Man City that I fear. And even now, as you say, Sandra, I could see us beating Man City this season. It's a crazy thing to say.
Yeah, it is worth mentioning there, just the point about Man City. Last season, in the second half at the Etihad, we were the better team. When we played
I actually think 10 more minutes, we might have beaten them. 10 more minutes, we might have beaten them.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And you talk about the Man United, we've won the last 4 encounters with a goal aggregate of 10-2. And one of those 2 was an own goal last season. They're not the Manchester United under Alex Ferguson. They've had a decade of ridiculous transfer spend. No one really knows what's going on at that club. They're not scary. None of the big six are scary anymore. And I think that's not only is that a case of us getting so much better because we have, but they're just not as good at putting a gelled team together as perhaps we are.
You want to know a crazy fact? In our last 5 games, we've scored 14 goals, and we could have scored more. Isn't that mad?
Yeah, we'll talk about some of those stats a bit later because we are, of course, celebrating a year of Zerbi ball, and we are going to unpick some of those stats once we've dissected the game a little bit more. Just really quickly, Lexi, I almost prefer playing the big six compared to the teams usually around the bottom. I fully agree because, as we saw against West Ham, teams that sit back, even under Zerbi, we sometimes struggle to break down, whereas other teams like Manchester United, like Man City, like the big six, they want to come at us, and that is where we can boost. And of course, we've got Dagan in the chat. Hey, Dagan, saying keep that optimism. We should fear no one. Yep, Dagan has got me believing people. These pesky Americans,
our resident optimist.
Yeah, with their optimism. But no, Joe, let's talk about.
Sorry, Tom, just quickly. Just before we go on, I want to draw attention to a comment that Callum's popped in there as well. Are you suggesting that Fernandes sulking about the pitch doesn't promote a team spirit? Absolutely. He was ridiculous all game.
Wait,
chasing
Fernandes,
the referee, looking for
being moody and stuff. Are you sure?
Yeah. I don't understand that appointment for him as captain.
There's a fantastic clip going around. If you guys haven't seen it already, of the second goal during the 30 pass sequence. I think it's about a minute in after it starts with Steele, and Fernandes is just chasing shadows, and he goes, and you can just tell, there's no commitment there. But more on that in a bit. We've got to talk with Joe, of course, about something I never thought I'd say. We got the correct VAR call at Old Trafford because it looked like Manchester United had equalised just before half-time with Rashford playing a ball across the 6-yard box to be tapped in by their new signing whose name I cannot pronounce, and I'm not gonna,
Hoyland.
Yeah,
Hoyland.
Rasmus Hoyland.
Hoyland. His name is
Like
Hoyland.
Haaland, but Hoyland.
Well, he tucked it away, and it looked like Manchester United had equalised. But Joe, it wasn't to be. Ball out of play. I mean, I don't know if it was what it was like for you guys in the ground. For us, it was a pretty clear cut. That's out of play. Still took about 2 minutes to decide, though. So, what was it like for you guys in the ground? Could you see it from where you were?
Yeah, we were pretty much bang in line, weren't we, Dan?
Yeah. From where our seats, it was straight down the. I mean, you can see my backdrop. I don't know how big it is for anyone watching, but those are our seats. So we had a fantastic vantage point.
Dan, I've just got to go ask. You haven't been left. Joe hasn't left you in Manchester, has he?
Could someone come pick me up? Joe promised me to get me an Uber. I'm still waiting.
I'm about halfway there, mate. I could be there in about 2 hours.
Go on. I'll see you in a bit.
I love it. No, but yeah, when something like that happens at Old Trafford, it's normally Manchester United's weapon of choice that is VAR, but on this occasion, it was ours. So very, very happy that they took the time, because at the time, Dan, you can vouch for me, I was complaining of how long it was taking. But I'm glad they took the time to see that there was grass in between the ball and the line, and the correct decision came to, and the Manchester United celebrations were cut short, which was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, from the off, I thought, the referee from the off was a bit iffy for me. I thought he was gangster tripping through most of that first half.
Booking
I was quite
Van Hecker
for kicking a spare ball off the pitch. Gave Lamptey a yellow card about 4 minutes in for a fair tackle, but we digress.
I want to give praise though to the linesman on the further side, because I thought he had an excellent game, and we don't normally praise officials, but I thought that he was really, really good.
Hey man, when the officials deserve praise, we will give the praise. It's how we roll. We're quick to moan about them, but no, fair play. Definitely, should we praise them like we should? Dan, halftime 1-0. Happy with that first half performance, generally speaking?
Generally speaking, yeah. I mean, we had the first sort of 15-20 where I was very, very worried, very, very anxious. We then pushed back a little bit, as you say. United were chasing shadows. I think I even used that exact phrase when I was speaking to Joe about it during the game. Yeah, generally speaking, quite happy. I would like to have gone in 2-0 up. I was saying I hope we get another goal just before half time, just to try and settle it. As it turns out, the disallowed goal was effectively like another goal. It gave us the morale boost. It made them feel more miserable. So it kind of filled the purpose.
Sorry, everyone. Technical issues there, but no, you're right. It was a good first half, and I think the second half started quite brightly. Kurtis, again, very entertaining half. The second half, I mean, starting well. Adingra almost getting ahead of Onana after a Matoma cross. Hoyland, spreading the play, hit, and then I think it was Rashford hit the side netting. But it was once again Brighton who made the most of the possession that we had. And we're going to talk about that 30 pass sequence I alluded to earlier. It was a thing of beauty. And I'd like to think that Ansu Fati was watching that thinking, yeah, this seems like home. This seems like Barcelona. Phenomenal sequence of play. And it ended with that man, Pascal Gross, getting his 7th Premier League goal against Manchester United. Lamptey playing a beautiful ball into space. Manchester United just standing there watching as Pascal Gross jinked his way away from Martinez and fired home past the keeper. What did you make of it?
I mean, it was bloody wonderful. Am I watching Brighton or Barcelona? That thing. But I'm so happy to see Lamptey assisting and things like that. Because when I first saw the highlights of it, I was like, oh, was that meant did he mean to do that? But I do think he did me, because he knows what Gross is going to do. This is the thing about the cohesion of the team. We know what each other's going to do, I think, and I think that's quite noticeable. But, Pascal Gross slot and goals away at Old Trafford. It is the sky is blue, the grass is green. It's just things that happen. But the way was it Martinez? He sat down as well with that.
Yeah.
Beautiful, absolutely stunning. But again, just a really well worked team maneuver. So really happy with that.
Yeah, it was. And I just want to say a quick welcome to Chris, who's put in the comments that he has become a supporter from the United States. Welcome on this journey. Yeah, please read up on the history of the club.
Howdy, rootin' tootin' and all that. Right?
I'm sorry for that. Is that xenophobia? Is that racism?
No.
Well, answers on a postcard. Well, you're just creating cliches where they don't need to be cliches. You might as well just be sipping on a cup of tea.
I was about to say, we are literally British cliches. So
yeah, I have just finished.
Do you know what, guys? It's been a wonderful night so far, and now it's getting ruined. So
ruined. Don't you start.
Just calm down.
Yeah, Dan has just put in the comments as well. A quarter of Pascal Gross's goals have come at Old Trafford. He's phenomenal, Joe. Absolutely phenomenal player. And it was a really nice finish. But I've got to talk, Joe. I've got to talk about that star man, because we've neglected him a little bit. Really fantastic in the first half. Tariq Lamptey was on his more unfamiliar left-hand side of the pitch. Caused Manchester United problems when he was going forward. Defended very well and got his first assist of the afternoon with a delightful pass into space. As good, Joe, as the goal was from Pascal Gross, what did you make of Tariq Lamptey's contribution in that goal?
Could we maybe now argue that based on these two performances at left back for Tariq Lamptey, and I think it's only been two, that he is more than capable of playing both sides, that he's not a right-sided player per se anymore?
Yeah,
that
the second assist was with his left foot. So,
yeah. So this is a player of extremely high caliber who's come through a very well-known academy, whose team I will not mention.
Somewhere Todd Bowley's like, where did they get that Tariq Lamptey from? I don't know where Todd is actually from. That's just my American accent for Todd.
Goodness me.
Yeah, he's Googling.
Can we stop with the Americanism?
What is a Tariq Lamptey and where do I buy one from?
Yeah, literally. But this is we were talking about Tariq Lamptey being linked to Bayern Munich before he got injured. Do you know what I mean? This is an extremely high level player. And if we can keep him fit, and that is a massive if, then we have zero issues at fullback, in my opinion. We've got more than enough to see the season through, and to get maybe one more in January even. Or if not, I'm more than happy to see the season out with what we do have. And Roberto Zerbi seems happy with the squad. He said that he needs one midfielder more, and that is Jakob Moder. And hopefully he can come back from injury as well. So he's been listed in the Premier League squad, so I don't see why not. But yeah, it just goes to prove that what a fit Tariq Lamptey can do, because he was an absolute menace for Manchester United. I think I said it to you, Dan, but when I saw that Lamptey and Matoma were starting on the left-hand side together, I said, rest in peace, Manchester United right back, because they were overlapping and undercutting for days. They were having the best time of their life. And that goes to prove with the next two goals, Tom.
Yeah, it was a really fantastic performance from Tariq down that left-hand side. Just put in the comments, there was a lot of debate if we needed depth at left back or right back more. Turns out we had both in one player all along. I do agree, Justin. I do think that Tariq Lamptey is a phenomenal player. As Joe has alluded to, though, it's all about whether he can stay fit. History would indicate that is probably not going to be the case. But let's see what happens. Dan, it was a very good second half for us. And we were 2-0 up. And then we brought off Danny Welbeck and Adam Lallana, and we put on João Pedro and Ansu Fati. What a sight to behold. The strength in depth from our bench. And if imagine if you will, Dan, for a moment, that you're a tiring Manchester United defender and you see João Pedro and Ansu Fati coming on, I mean, you must have the fear of God sort of in you, because you know that they can hurt you.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they'd already been. I'm not sure if I should say run ragged, because I don't think they'd necessarily been run ragged at that point. They'd been carved open quite a number of times, as we've mentioned, but we could have scored more. Matoma and Ajingra were running at him. Lamptey was running at him. But then to see Danny Welbeck and Lallana coming off, and seeing these two young, up and coming, pacey, strong, incredibly talented players, they're just I can't imagine what was running through their minds. They must have thought, let's just give in now, because I noticed even when they were chasing the game, they brought on Wan-Bissaka, I think, to try and prevent further goals from being shipped, because we could have scored more. We had a couple more good chances, which we may well touch on. I don't know. We don't necessarily have to, but yeah, they must have been absolutely bricking it. Harry Maguire thanking his lucky stars he wasn't in that lineup.
Yeah, definitely. And we will talk about one of those chances, because it's got my man Billy G all up in it. Go on, Joe.
Can I have my say very, 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 very quickly on Harry Maguire? And we're not a Man United podcast, so maybe this isn't a point that should be made. However, on the way back down, we were listening to Talk Sport.
Yeah.
And Manchester United fans were calling up to slate Harry Maguire. And I'm like, hold on a minute. The boy didn't even play. And it again goes back to the England game, right, where Harry Maguire comes on and is then pushed into the forefront of the topic of where does Harry Maguire belong. And maybe it's a hot take, but I genuinely disagree with the fact that Harry Maguire is getting so much shit recently. What has he done to deserve it? I know he's not played much football. I know he declined going to West Ham, but I just don't see why it's his fault that his career has gone this way.
Because if
There's
it's not his
so
fault,
much pressure
it's
on
the Glazers' fault. You're right, Joe. Manchester United fans, I just want to blame people. They've spent over £1 billion in the transfer market in the last decade, and they're acting as if they're like bloody Bury, or Southend United. These teams that are going out of business, and they're like, "Oh, woe is me, we've only spent £1 billion." Get some perspective.
I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree.
Harry Maguire doesn't fit your team. He doesn't fit your style of play. He's a defender, likes to sit in a deep block. That's not Ten Hag's style.
Yeah, I do want to say something very, very quickly, and this is kind of going off a topic for a little bit, but if you don't want me saying something very quickly, I'd like to say it. I live with a Reading FC fan, and Reading FC is currently going down the toilet, and there is an amazing campaign currently going on called Sell Before We Die, right? And their owner, Dai Young, is absolutely tanking an amazing historic club. So go out there, and even if you're not a fan of Reading, we should be supporting these clubs that are struggling. So, all props to Reading and their fans through this tricky time.
But Kurtis, the Glazers.
Yeah, this is the thing that annoys me, because I saw Mark Goldbridge put a post out like, "Oh God, we're so hard done by. We've got all these injuries. Free Willy on a sun lounger and all this stuff." And then I'm like, and then I was saying, I think Reading FC fans might disagree with you, mate, and all these other clubs that are really, really struggling whilst you're out spending billions of quid, and you're moaning like, "Oh, this player we spent 90 million on is not playing good enough." I was like, "I'll get in the bin."
It's absolutely ridiculous. When we're at Wembley, there was a huge glazed out banner that went up the side. They ended up winning. They ended up celebrating. They loved the Glazers. They wanted Ronaldo. They got Ronaldo. Glazers out. Even when we were there the other day, they got all the players they wanted over the summer. Even still, Glazers out. What more do they want? They've got all the players they wanted. They've got the managerial appointment they wanted. It's just ridiculous. They have nothing to complain about.
They lack perspective, because they've only known the good times for the last however many decades. So their perspective is skewed by their success. But let's move on. Let's talk about our third goal, because it was almost a copy and paste of the previous two. in that, Brighton, some lovely football being played. Tariq Lamptey powers through, and on the cutback that he puts in with his left foot, as I've already said, and who's there to tuck it away but João Pedro? Carbon copy of the last two. No one picking João Pedro up as he bursts into the box, and Brighton are 3-0 to the good Joe. What a time to be alive. 3-0 up at Old Trafford.
Utter bloody scenes. Honestly, like, I don't think I've ever celebrated a goal like that. It was such a good away day. It was such a good atmosphere, and it was weird though, because the away end is split into 3, so you're like segregated from your own fans, but that didn't take away from the atmosphere. It was just such a special time to watch a third goal go in at Old Trafford, and for us to kill that game, and for any anxiety just to be alleviated, and then we could then go on to enjoy the rest of the game. I think as a Brighton fan, there's still a tiny ounce of anxiety that we might absolutely F it up. But I think that just comes with the territory. But yeah, it was... And what a finish as well, by the way. First time, takes it away from the goalkeeper into the far corner. Onana's stretching for that for days. He's never getting there. I was shocked at the quality of the finish. And it just goes to prove again... that the player we have in João Pedro, just such a different option. And I think what we've had in the past maybe is that sometimes our attackers have been a little bit too similar. However, now we've got 9 attacking options that all give us something completely different. And Roberto Zerbi must be absolutely loving the fact that he's got to choose 4 of these 9 players to start every game. And then he's got 3 of them on the bench and 2 of them missing out. It's absolutely insane, Tom.
It's mad.
And they can play in multiple positions as well. Obviously, Pedro can play as a 9 and a 10. He can play on either side. Same with Ansu Fati. Welbeck can play on the left-hand side. The potential options of where you put these players is quite ridiculous.
What's crazy to me, though, is how the last couple of years we maybe haven't had that strength off the bench, and like we've come a long way. We've had some bad times and some good ones, but between that, I never thought we'd be in the situation we're in right now, where we're going, oh, João Pedro and Ansu Fati on the bench, just bring them on.
Yeah,
I mean, I still got Elvis Manu in my brain, so like, you know what I mean?
Honestly, after yesterday, I just wanted to eat, sleep, rave, and repeat. Like, it was just celebrations galore.
Yeah, it was. I mean, right here, right now, we've got probably one of the best attacks in the world. I think our attacking players would slot into almost any team across the globe, including City, including Real Madrid, Ferguson, Fati, maybe, Pedro.
Solly would at the Bernabeu. I want to see
it. Pete, where are you, sir? Where are you?
Come out, Pete. We're waiting.
But no, you're right. We've got the attacking talent we have is probably only second best in the league to Manchester City at the moment. Again, we will unpick some stats. I'm just wary on time, so let's gloss over the fact that Manchester United scored really quickly. Dan, were you disappointed to concede straight away after scoring?
I don't want to say yes, but yes. It's been
good goal, to be fair. It was a really good goal.
It was a great goal, and I don't think there really was much that we could have done about it. That boy's got talent, Hannibal. Don't really know a lot about him. He was on loan in the Championship, I think, last year. But he does look quite good. He was one of the only bright sparks in that team.
Did you see the way he celebrated? He celebrated like he put him 6-0 up.
But the thing is, people having a go at him for it. But like, it's his first goal for them, like in a major stage.
Just lucky he didn't eat your face off.
It's true. Fava beans and Chianti and all that. Right?
Hello, Clarice.
Were they screaming, Clarice?
He puts the lotion on its skin. I know that I wasn't actually Hannibal. That was Just before we sort of like get to the end, I've got to talk a little bit about Fatty then, because it was his first game for the club. He looked really, really good, and he will be disappointed, Kurtis, not to get on the score sheet. And it gives me an opportunity to talk about someone who's becoming my favourite player, and that is William Clifford Gilmore, who didn't make the starting 11. Obviously been on international duty with Scotland. He came on in the second half. He looked very, very good, and he played an absolute peach of a ball behind the Manchester United. He split them in half like someone splitting an atom, an Oppenheck splitting the atom. He split the defense in half, and Ansu Fati probably could have done a little bit better. But Kurtis, really, really encouraging to see that on his first time out for Brighton, Ansu Fati is getting in amongst it and causing the opposition problems.
I mean, Billy Clifford Gilmore. What else to say? No, but like, I mean, we know how good he is. I know. I'm getting him on my shirt actually when I get one. But he's so good. He's a mainstay, that lad. He really, really is. I thought Dahoud struggled a little bit at times, but he came into it. But when Gilmore came on, I was like, yes, good, Gilmore's coming on. But I was so hoping. I was like, oh, Fatty scoring on his debut, please. And he was inches away. But he looked really good in the cameo that he had. So I look forward to him potentially starting a game coming up, maybe a cup game. And I'm sure he's going to be an absolute menace for anyone who has to defend against him. So again, really, really exciting times. It's amazing.
Yeah, some of his attacking runs were sublime. Some of his touches were excellent. You can see the quality that is just oozing out of that young man, and I think it's going to be an absolute privilege.
Bloom, pay up the billion. Pay up the billion, Bloom. Come on.
Come on, Tony. You could do it. Put a bet on Brighton to win the league. Go on, put it big, and then use the money that you win off it to buy Ansu Fati. The game ended 3-1, and it's not unfair to say that it was completely deserved. At times, Brighton played Manchester United off the pitch, as I said in that lead up to the second goal, where Manchester United couldn't get a sniff of the ball. The Manchester United players just looked dejected. And with that win, Brighton became the first team to beat Manchester United at Old Trafford in the Premier League since Brighton and Hove Albion. I mean, fantastic result. An absolutely fantastic result. And this brings us really nicely into discussing Roberto De Zerbi a year in post. Now, Sandra has mentioned up in the chat, I didn't come to it at the time, I want to come to it now. She says, remember a couple of seasons ago, the match with 31 shots and none on target. It seems, Joe, that those days are long gone. And I remember when De Zerbi came in his early tenure, we put out a stat about just how fantastic our attacking football was. And we got slated a little bit for manipulating stats. Here are some stats, Joe, since Roberto De Zerbi took over. 44 official games, 23 wins, 9 draws, 12 losses. Europa League for the first time in the club's history. 8 wins in 15 total games against the Big Six. Scored more than 3 goals in 18 games. The most Premier League goals by teenagers since he joined, with 15. The goals we've scored, 76, which is third behind Manchester City, and I can't remember who else. Answers on a postcard. Shots, 624, first. Shots on target, 244, first. Touches in opponent's box, 1,228, third. Expected goals, 74.7, second, only behind Manchester City. Average possession, 62%, second, only behind Manchester City. Joe, how are those for some manipulated stats?
Yeah, you've done some good manipulating there, Tom. Well done. You have fully manipulated me into thinking that we might well just be the second best team in the whole world I don't think it's actually far from the truth by saying that we play some of, if not the best football in the Premier League. We've had the best manager in the world complement our football, and we took.
Wait, you mean Roberto De Zerbi complimented himself?
Exactly. Yeah. And we've had our second team take to the best team in the world and play them off the park at times. And honestly, I know we've lost Caicedo. I know we've lost McAllister, but there's something about this team that we have right now that I think, do you know what? It's going to be another unbelievably special season. I don't want to get too carried away. We're only 5 Premier League games in. However, Dagan, you've done it again, mate. I'm finding you. Are we, and I'm going to take host for a second, Tom. Are we genuine title contenders?
Yes, I believe. I don't know. There's something about Roberto De Zerbi that just makes me believe. I don't know. I don't know what it is. How can you lose Trossard, Mope, Ben White? I mean, Ben White's before his time, but the point still stands. How can you lose Bissouma, Caicedo, McAllister, and just keep getting better? That comes, I mean, Dagan's put it really well in the chat. The players obviously have to perform, but it takes a very special coach to get them there. Tony Bloom said in an interview that was on My Albion that we've got new goals. If we're not genuine title contenders, we're certainly in contention for Champions League. For me, the crux will come down to how well we do with the European run of games. That extra run of games is obviously going to take its toll. If we can go through the season with minimal injuries, minimal suspensions, we will, of course, go through dips and we will, go through parts of bad form. That is a football season. But the best teams in the world, even when you're going through those bad dips, bad times, you still find a way to scrape a point here, scrape a win there when you perhaps didn't deserve to. And we started seeing that last season. Was it the Bournemouth game when Matoma scored that the singular goal in like the 80-something minute? Stuff like that. That's what gets fans to believe. I have watched this club. I'm going to get all history now. I've watched this club for a very long time. A very long time. Not as long as some, but, most of my life I've spent watching this football club. I never thought I'd see the day where I could genuinely sit here and completely and honestly say, yes, why not? Why not? If we can have a good season, if we can keep this momentum going, which I don't see why we shouldn't, why not? Why can't we do that? It's about if we can keep Manchester City in sight, if we can cope with the European pressures, why the hell not?
I mean, I see us potentially winning some silverware this season. That would be nice. I think the FA Cup thing probably weighs quite heavy on De Zerbi. You know what he's like when we lost in the tournament last year. Like, you could tell that really, really bothered him. And I feel like he's going to have a point to prove. And I could definitely see us coming away with a nice bit of silverware. Maybe.
Dan, what's your take on this?
I don't know if we can consider ourselves title contenders. I didn't want to jump in and say that while all the positivity was flowing. I know. Let me go. I know.
What about top 4 then, Dan? Do you see
top 4? I mean, I think, as you say, it depends on how the European run goes. It depends how far we go in the Carabao Cup. It depends how far we get in the FA Cup. The only reason I think we don't have a chance with the title is just because I don't think we can catch City at the moment. I don't think our depth is there to catch City. I think the quality in the first team is fine. If we were playing just one tournament, just the Premier League or whatever, I think we could potentially keep up. But I don't think we have the depth. But I mean,
a lot of games.
Yeah. I mean, potentially top floor, and I agree that I think we may well see some silverware this season. We were so close last year. We would have done better than United in the final of the FA Cup. Carabao Cup, again, if we take that seriously, we may have a good chance. We've obviously got the first game on a week Wednesday, Chelsea away. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But, even Europa League, why not? Hey, Ajax had a terrible result the other day. They don't look the shadow of the team they used to be. Athens, Marseille, good teams, but I don't think they're to our level. I believe that Manchester United are a better team than either of them. So I think we could genuinely get some silverware this season.
I also want to make a bold claim off the back of what Dan just said. I think pound for pound, man for man, we are a better team than Manchester United.
100%. Yeah.
Quality wise.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
I think after you think
people will say
that now, yeah.
Yeah, people will say like, "Oh, Rashford would walk into your team, Martinez would walk into your team, Fernandez would walk into your team." No, they wouldn't. They haven't got the right attitude to play for this football club. They haven't got the right attitude to fight for a football club that isn't worthy, and I put that in quotation marks.
Yeah.
I honestly think there's that snobbery amongst big six players as well. That I'm not going to go to that football club that aren't worthy of success. I'm going to be at this big football club and win a trophy for this big football club. It's nonsense. We are, man for man, a better team than Manchester United.
And it's interesting you brought that up, the pound for pound aspect as well, because something I wanted to say a little earlier on, but didn't quite get. There wasn't quite the right time. But I saw a tweet from Mike King earlier. Credit Mike King. We don't want to be taking people's tweets or content without credit. So, Mike, if you're watching, thank you for this. He tweeted earlier that our team cost a total of 16.6 million. Our starting lineup cost a total of 16.6 million. Manchester United spent £19 million on Diogo Dalot, one player who had an absolute stinker. Our whole team was less than him. I had absolutely no idea that our team was so inexpensive compared to them, based on the talent we had. But looking through it, you could see that they're all very, very cheap youth buys or
freeze, basically.
Yeah, well, freeze, yeah, pretty much. So yeah, thanks, Mike, for bringing that to everyone's attention.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, but it goes to show, you're more than the sum of your parts. It's all well and good that you have a £90 million player or whatever, but if you can't get the best out of him, it doesn't matter how much he costs. I think that Chelsea are finding out that too.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? Like with like people like United and Chelsea, like you can have the shiniest car in the lot, but like if the engine doesn't run, then you don't. It just doesn't work. So
yeah, and it's all worth mentioning, as Jason has just pointed out, that was not our strongest side. 6 changes. I think Manchester United fans might argue, hang on, that wasn't their strongest side either. But 6 changes, and we still battered them at times. They did cause us issues. I'm not going to pretend that they didn't. But 6 changes and still walking over Manchester United at Old Trafford. I mean,
what did he like? You say that might not have been Manchester United's strongest side, but hold on a minute. How Casemiro for however much money, Bruno Fernandes on the wages he's on, Marcus Rashford, and then
the back, no Shaw. I would.
All right, so when Shaw was in the team, Shaw was in the team before we beat them 4-0. Shaw was in the team last season. We beat them 1-0.
I'm just saying that's what Manchester United fans would probably come back at us with, but obviously,
well, they're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, our B team beat their B.5, A- team. I don't know. I don't really care. But no, the point is, we are better than Manchester United. You heard it here first. I'm going to push you now each for your player of the match. We've talked about some fantastic performances. We've mentioned Jean-Paul Van Hecke. We've talked about Tariq Lamptey. We've talked about the professionalism and leaderships of the likes of Adam Lallana and Danny Welbeck. We've talked about the skills of Simon Adingra and his defensive duties as well. So who, for your money, was the player of the match, Joe?
Oh, really tough one. Again, great that we've got a tough man of the match pick. Tariq Lamptey, 2 assists. Playing at left back, as you say, might not be his best or most strongest position. Yeah, absolutely flawless. linked up with Matoma incredibly well, caused an incredible amount of bother with the United back line, and defended resolutely as well when he needed to. So yeah, Tarek Lamptey for me, 10 out of 10 performance.
Hard to argue with that. Dan, how about you? Who was your player of the match?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to go same as Joe. It's going to be Lamptey. He was just incredible. He came back after such a long time out, and he was immense. He was back to his former best on his, in brackets here, weaker side. You would never have known that wasn't his natural side or his stated preferred side. He looked every bit as good, I think, as a Stupinian, against potentially weaker opposition. You never know. But Hoyland didn't really get a lot out of him all game. He scored that off that goal, which was then later on ruled out. But yeah, just phenomenal. 2 assists, almost a clean sheet. He did everything he could to keep, Anyway, I'm waffling. Yeah, Lamptey.
Good shout. Good shout. Kurtis, are you going to make it a clean sweep?
Tough. It's really tough again, which is wonderful that we've got a few people we can choose from here. I thought Veltman has a good shout as well, how well and resolute he was yesterday. But Tarek, for everything these guys said, I just think he really shone yesterday and definitely deserves the plaudits.
Some fantastic performances.
What about yourself, Thomas? What do you think?
I was wondering, before I give my player of the match, I do want to just give out a huge shout again to Van Hecker, because he just keeps impressing me. He was so good dealing with Rashford. He was practically flawless, as Alfie, you've just put in the comments. He was really, really, really good. But like you've said, for me, it's got to be Tarek Lamptey coming back into the team, playing on a more unfamiliar side. 2 assists. He was fantastic going forward. Very good defensively. Got stuck in from the word go. And that's what you want from a player who's been on the sidelines for quite a while, had a lot of injury problems, but he's starting to show the promise that we saw way back in 2020 when he burst onto the scene. And of course, it's so good to see that star man return. I hope that we can manage his minutes. I hope we can manage his fitness as well as we can, because I think that if we can get him playing regularly, he will be so good for us.
Do you know what else I absolutely adore about Tarek Lamptey is the fact that he's had ample opportunity to leave this football club, whether that be on loan or permanently. He stayed, and he's working to get his place in this team under Roberto Zerbi to succeed and to witness these amazing moments at this football club. So I think that goes to prove again what kind of character Tarek Lamptey is as well, because we can talk about his footballing ability all we like, but his character shines through every single time I see him. Yep,
certainly does. And as Justin points out as well, played on a bogus yellow for the majority of the match. It would have been very easy for United to target him, but they couldn't get the better of him. Right then, gentlemen, let's talk about our next game, because another sentence I never thought I'd ever say. Our next game is a European game. We are going to be playing AEK Athens at the Amex on Thursday. Absolutely phenomenal scenes, Joe, that we are playing a European fixture against Athens. I mean, I'm going to hold my hands up. I don't know a huge amount about their team. I would like to think that, as we've sort of already alluded to, the fact that perhaps we are playing at home in our first European game is going to be a bonus for us. Hopefully we can, bring in some players that have rested, like Billy Gilmore, Pervis Estupinian, Evan Ferguson. With what you know, Joe, with what your heart tells you, how do you think we're going to get on Thursday? And what do you predict the score to be?
Yeah, so first of all, I think it's going to be an absolute party atmosphere. I think the club absolutely have to raise the excitement levels around the club. I think it's going to happen anyway, based on the performance at Manchester United and that result. Coming back home after such a good result, the atmosphere is normally quite good anyway. But I would love the club to do something really special, whether that be a tifo or a flag or a sea of blue and white flags like we've seen multiple times. I just really think we've got to make this night unbelievably special, and I'm sure it will be. The noise levels are going to be incredible. I think the noise levels are going to peak Chelsea, are going to peak Man United, are going to peak Sheffield Wednesday.
Can I just butt in here, Joe, really quickly? I believe I'm right in saying that Athens have sold out their away allocation. And from what I know about Greek football, the supporters can be quite loud as well. So that will really help the atmosphere that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely will. And I think we're going to have too much for all three of these teams in our group. That the football we've been playing is scintillating. And we're going to take it to them. Roberto De Zerbi's not going to let the levels drop whatsoever. We're going to see some really important players come back into the team this Thursday. And I think we're really going to take it to them. And I predict a 4-0 win for the Albion.
Superb. Just before I come to you, Dad, I was going to read out this from Alfie because it's quite good insight here. He says, I watch a lot of Super League and they are good for the Greek First Division, but they're really nothing in comparison to even bottom table Premier League teams. Their fans are insane as well. Dan, I mean, from what little I know, I'd probably argue that they're the weakest team in the league, but let's not sell them too short. We've been sold short for decades. How do you see the game on Thursday going?
So I think it's going to be difficult, right? And again, you don't get an easy football game, but I think it's going to be a little more difficult than a lot of people are maybe expecting it to be, because their fans are ridiculous. They turn up in huge, great numbers, as the chat has said, and they will be singing and chanting, and the volumes will be incredible. And I don't know if the Amex isn't known for its great home atmosphere, so we're going to have to be top form to try and counteract that a little bit, to try and get behind the boys, because I don't know, and potentially this is something that I may be harking back to a little bit ago under Hute and under Potter. Every now and again, the boys looked like they were potentially a little intimidated in like a really hostile atmosphere. And I worry that they might be again. I'm sure they're not. I'm sure they won't be, as De Zerbi has them well drilled. He has them, they know what to expect, I think, at this point. But again, I think they might sit quite deep, and I think we might struggle to break them down. They are not, the levels are very different between the Super League and the Premier League, so they're going to have to try and play to their advantage and sit deep. So I don't think it will be as easy as everyone says. I can still see us winning, but I think it will be a much tighter 1-0, something like that.
And this, Kurtis, is where the experience of Adam Lallana, Danny Welbeck, James Milner, and of course Roberto De Zerbi, who has coached in European competitions before, will really come in handy, because most of our squad will have not experienced these European games. Do you think it's going to be a tough one on and off the pitch?
Yes. I mean, we've also got people like Purvis, because Purvis won a European trophy, don't forget. But still, I do think it will be a harder test than someone making it out to be. I think we're kind of maybe a bit foolish to sort of rule out to rule out how tricky that's going to be, because they're going to be coming wanting blood themselves. They're going to want to progress in this. And this is a new experience for them, because they've never been to Brighton. I can't imagine they have a huge amount of understanding how we play. But it's a really exciting prospect, and I'm looking forward to it. But I also agree that it's going to be a tight one. I do feel like we will win. It'll probably be like a 2-1, 3-1 or something like that. But I feel like we have the experience there. And I feel like we will win, but we have to be resolute, and we have to be aware that they're not going to be pushovers.
Yeah, they're certainly not here to just take part. Alfie just put it there, they will score a set piece. They are big centre halves, and they will fight to the end. I think that we're going to be coming up against a style of football that perhaps is more akin to perhaps what you might even think of when you think about the Championship. Very physical football. So it's just about whether we can cope with that, which I'm sure, I hope we can.
Which is a worry, because typically, look at the physical teams we've come up against: Everton, the old school Burnley, typically haven't done particularly well. Obviously, the levels are different, so we'll have to wait. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory for the Albion. Late goal coming from them to give a bit of a squeaky bum time at the end. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. Just before we sign off, this just seems like a good time to let you know that we are now affiliate with One Clop Shop, the football shirt seller. Talking of football shirts, isn't this thing an absolute beauty, by the way? But no, less about my lovely shirt, because it is very lovely, and more about stuff like this, vintage shirts that you can buy on One Clop Shop. As I say, we are an affiliate, which means if you go and check out the link in the description below that we will leave there for you, you can get some discounts. How much is it? I believe it's 10% with the code Albion Obsessed. All one word. All
that is a good deal.
letters.
That's a very good deal.
Exactly.
It is.
So if, like me, you like spending your money on football shirts, go check them out. Some fantastic shirts for sale there. Last little plug from us. Joe, I think you got something in the mail today.
I did get something in the mail today, and it is, of course, the wonderful people at Dogma. Another new issue for them to start their 3 issues this season. It's got lots of cool stuff in there. I'm not going to spoil it. Go and buy it, and you get some really nice artwork sort of things. Got this on the back, so there are 6 European games. You get a nice little postcard for your European tour, so you can send that whilst you're in Marseille. Send it to a loved one. All fun. And you get a lovely Purvis Estupinian sticker as well, so you can't go wrong. It's £10 or £9.95 for a season subscription. You get 3 magazines per season, and it's extremely high quality. All of the money that goes to them goes back into creating stuff for fans and bringing communities together. They do incredible artwork. So yeah, go check them out. All of the links will be in the description a little bit later. I haven't included them because I was in a rush earlier, but the links will be in the description and on our Twitter. You can find them on socials, Dogma Brighton, and obviously One Clop Shop is also on Twitter as well.
Fantastic. Thank you ever so much, guys, for joining us today. Thank you, viewers, for joining us who joined us live. Thank you for all your wonderful comments. It's been fantastic to have this conversation with you. We look forward to next time chatting with you about our first European football game. What a time to be alive as a Brighton fan, as we made Manchester United lose for 3 times in the first 5 games since 1989. All that's left to say then, gentlemen, is wherever you may be, whenever you may be, we will see you next time. Take care. Keep it real.